He went on to star in a movie credited as a groundbreaking film for gay culture and a force that pushed the Canadian film scene forward. I was 13 years old, incredibly naive, and living in a small francophone community outside Sudbury, Ontario, when I first heard the name Craig Russell. I was watching something rather bland on television, and all of a sudden, this colorful, flamboyant man was mentioned in a commercial promoting a documentary. I remember it so clearly. His coiffed hair and makeup, talk of a friendship with actress Mae West, brazen footage of him singing in a wig and gown, and mention that self-confidence eluded him despite his incredible success. I had immediate questions. Who was this effeminate man in makeup? Was he a crossdresser? He lived with an old lady movie star? And he got to make a movie? Why did he get to do things like this? Craig was like no one I'd ever known. I figure he was likely gay. I didn't know any gay people, nor did I see any in the television shows or movies I watched. Was this what gay men were like? I was skeptical, wondering why there'd be a documentary about someone like that and why it was worth talking about. I had so much to learn about the world. A decade later, I was a journalism graduate with an interest in social history and biography when Craig's name crossed my path again. I was researching Margaret Gibson, a celebrated writer who suffered from schizophrenia, and an article about her mentioned Craig. They had been friends and roommates. I wondered what that could have been like. I looked up one of their shared friends in the phone book and called her up, telling her I had an interest in both Margaret, the writer who struggled with what she called madness, and Craig, the flamboyant female impressionist who seemed so unrecognized and misunderstood. I got more than I bargained for. That conversation spawned so much intrigue that I spent the next decade of my life researching and learning about Craig. Initially, it was a hobby, but by 2017, my efforts were full-time, and I knew there was a book to be written about his life. His story had talents to be celebrated, intrigues to be understood, and curious situations to be explained. In learning about Craig, I came to learn about Laurie, a shy and demure, theater-loving file clerk who joined his world of make-believe and became his wife. What a turn of events that must have been for her. Who gets to marry their favorite movie star? How did that happen? What was their marriage like? I had to know. I became just as enamored with Laurie as I was with Craig, and a biography about one became a biography about two. And what lives they lived. As if they weren't both outrageous and interesting enough, Craig and Laurie's life and their careers coincided with gay liberation. In the years after the Stonewall riots in the United States, Toronto had its first annual Gay Pride Week, gay bars quietly opened along Yonge Street, the local drag scene began to take shape, and there was a push to include sexual orientation in the Ontario Human Rights Code. The atmosphere was as motivating as it was frightening. Police raided bathhouses, and homophobic thugs lurked around parks and protests. Numerous men turned up murdered after frequenting popular gay establishments. Craig and Laurie were not necessarily politically engaged in the changing times, but they shared the notion they could do as they pleased with no apologies or regrets. They defied gender conventions and eschewed the heteronormative. Their lives and careers blossomed at the beginning of the throbbing sexual revolution and the new wave counterculture brought to the stage, radio, television, and film by icons like David Bowie, Freddie Mercury, Carol Pope, and Boy George. Craig and Laurie were strange people, square pegs in a world of round holes. Unusual, misfits. That is a challenging existence, but their challenges did not stop there. Few people knew it, but Craig's life was gripped by mental illness. Mental health was not only poorly understood when he was alive, it simply was not a conversation that was had. Craig self-medicated, and his choice of cocaine led to years of drug dependency. There wasn't a conversation about addiction then either. It was a vicious cycle from which he could not recover. Laurie faced her own traumas. She had a physically and emotionally abusive parent, was a survivor of rape, and suffered multiple accidents that broke her body and took from her spirit. Suffering from his own mental illness, Craig was at times abusive too. Laurie never realized she was a victim of abuse, nor did she see that, in her dependency, she was an enabler, and her behavior demonstrated an unhealthy obsession with Craig. Few knew about their challenges, and in time, friends, fans, and even some family came to look at both of them with raised eyebrows. Opinions and reactions to their outlandish behavior shifted from delightful curiosity to confusion and embarrassment. That judgment compounded Craig's and Laurie's challenges, putting another ceiling over them that they could not break through, even after having seemingly broken through every possible barrier. What people missed is this. And outrageous and nonconformist as they were, Craig and Laurie were just like you and me.